Hi, another year has gone by. Usually I do an update video around the end of the year, talking about things that have been going on and things that will be happening in the near future. So let's do one now. I've written myself a little outline here, so we will see how it goes. So to start, I thought I would give a quick summary of all the Let's Plays from this year, everything that I both started and finished in 2025. Things that have gone over the boundary that are like between 2 years will be handled separately, so we'll get to those. So, first new Let's Play I did in 2025 that also ended the same year was Master Key. So this was a top-down exploration and adventure game that also has a nonogram puzzle mode in it. The nonograms weren't a surprise to me. I was just expecting the adventure game parts, but it was a pleasant surprise. I spent actually more time with them than the story mode. So yeah, this was a pretty good time. I would recommend it. Basically what I'm doing here is summarizing for anyone who may not have watched the Let's Plays and would maybe want to go back and look at some of them that sound interesting or are interested in the game without having watched. Anyway, so just going to give a brief overview for general audiences here. So next thing I did was a very me project. So this was a Glider Pro house called Twisty. And I've done a bunch of Glider Pro houses before. This one was newly made in Aerofoil, which is a port of Glider Pro to modern computers, and was shared just with me, and I had the privilege of releasing it to the world after the Let's Play went live. This was a structurally very interesting house. Did some things that I had never seen in any other glider house. Made a surprisingly deep routing challenge that I enjoyed a whole lot. That was a real treat. So 4 episodes I think it was total, or was it 6? Don't have that number in front of me. It's one of those two numbers, I think. Much longer than a usual house project would go. So then there was Oracle of Seasons and Ages. The final pair of entries in the project I started in 2023 to play a selection of Zelda games in release order. So 2 Game Boy Color games that were released as a pair and interlink with each other, but they are separate games in a lot of senses. These 2 hold a special place for me in the Zelda series, and it was great to finally get to complete the second loop of both games. I had previously played them around release time on my own, and enjoyed them a whole lot and wanted to see what else there was to offer because I never fully finished both of them before. However, this came at the tail end of a long series with lots of Zelda games in it, and at that point I was experiencing some series fatigue, so the LP might have seemed like it dragged on a little bit more than I had planned for it to. I was left with some minor unfinished business at the end that I may come back to someday, but I overall had a good time, and I'm glad that I did it. So future Zelda games do remain under consideration for me to play at some point, but I don't currently have a strong drive to continue with the official ones right now. So sometime, maybe, we'll see. They'll be scheduled like any other game when and if I feel like it. So then I played a little game called Astrolancer. So this was a short Guardian Legend-like with its own original story. Wasn't very long. I had a pleasant experience overall, but I have to admit that at the end I did find it somewhat forgettable, which, isn't a crime or anything. Doesn't have to do anything all that special. The game was cool. It was fine. But yeah, does not stick out particularly in my mind among these. However, System Syzygy, the next one that I played, was a Cliff Johnson-like puzzle game inspired in part by 3 and 3, which was another game I Let's Played a while back and have a personal history with. So yeah, this was a very personal pick for me. A rare and very specific flavor of game, which was a real treat for me to get to play another of those. There's one more called Systems Twilight, which I think this was also inspired by, which I will certainly be playing at some point, but that just hasn't fit into the schedule at this point in time. So someday expect to see Systems Twilight. There's a little bit more technical setup involved with that game, so not quite as easy to just jump in and do as System Syzygy was. But yeah, so after I did that Let's Play, I shared this game with some of my family members who used to play 3 and 3 with me, and they've since played and greatly enjoyed it. So had a nice little family moment with that one, and it was just a nice personal thing for me. So then there was Dot Action 2, a little platform game made in Flash. It's in Japanese, though accessible to English speakers. You know, there's not much text that needs to be read, really. I have no idea how I found this game back in the day. I played this, decades ago or something. Just at one point in my life, I was exploring Flash games and happened upon this one and remembered it recently and decided to play it again. So it looks deceptively simple, but it really goes to some places. Relatively short. It has a lot of the properties that I value in fan games and other unconventional works. Without needing to have mass market appeal, it's free to experiment, and it uses that freedom quite well. Like I said, it goes places. It had a random mode in it, which was an item on the top level menu, which did not work for me when I selected it. It just froze up the game and could not proceed. One viewer found a workaround for that and got the random mode playable. I had some desire to showcase it at some point. That hasn't happened right now. Maybe someday I'll do like a little 1 or 2 episode annex showing off the random mode if I can get it to work the same way. But yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge that. I appreciate the extra research. Yeah, maybe someday I'll do something with that. So then there was Slider, a game from 2024 that had been on my radar since it first released. I'd been looking forward to playing it. Unfortunately, this one ended up being kind of a disappointment for me. There were parts of it that I enjoyed, but yeah, it was that Let's Play was hampered a little bit by some issues that I had with the game. Some of them technical, some of them design and story, but I don't know. It had some things that I liked about it. Game is free, no cost of entry, so certainly nothing to criticize there, but yeah. Is it worth my time? It's hard to say. Now, that's the end of the list of games that I started and finished in 2025. There were 7. So I had at one point a plan to play a whole bunch of short games in 2025. That sure did not happen. Let's talk about the lineup of games that is currently in progress. So, Strawberry Jam, still ongoing. This is a large community-made set of levels for Celeste, sorted into 5 difficulty tiers. At this point last year, when I made my previous year-end wrap-up, I was nearing the end of Expert Mode, which is difficulty 4 out of 5. So currently, at time of this recording, I'm somewhere around, I would estimate, the halfway point in Grandmaster Mode, so tier 5 out of 5 in difficulty. Every prior difficulty more than doubled the episode count of the previous one, and it kind of looks like the pattern is continuing, so still going. Long way to go yet. There are 2 likely endings to this story. One is that I reach the natural finish at the end of the Grandmaster Heart side, and the other is that at some point I just decide that I've hit my limit and just decide to stop. If things have just gotten too much for me and I don't feel like continuing, I may just call it quits. However, I've had several moments where I've considered that already, and it hasn't happened yet. So I'll keep going as long as it's interesting and as long as it feels like I can make progress. So who knows? Maybe this time next year I'll say I'm just about done with Grandmaster. I don't know. We'll find out. So it feels like this is something possibly unique that I am doing. I do feel pushed to continue because from what I hear, I might be the only one doing a blind Let's Play of Strawberry Jam and doing it with no other supplemental Celeste experience other than just the main game at Farewell. So I only ever did official Celeste things, and then I went straight to Strawberry Jam. So I think I know I'm watched by several people who have worked on the compilation. And that's always nice to see. And I've heard from them that it's been interesting to see my experience as a player in my possibly unique position. So I'm glad to be able to contribute something in that area. if I am doing something unique. So Leaf's Odyssey. This is a puzzle game that I made and released in 2024, and it has a level editor. And I have been, since then, working my way through every user-made level set that has been submitted to me. This has been a whole lot of fun. It has been a longer obligation than I expected. Now, when I say obligation, that is only to myself. No one else is involved in this decision process. I'm doing this because I want to and because I feel like it is valuable to me. And also, I like to share these things. So that's why I continue to do what I do. Currently, there are 8 worlds left to go, not counting Pat's World, which is in progress and fairly sizable. I'm maybe, I don't know, halfway through that, I would guess. Only one of the remaining 8 looks to be of significant size, though it is hard to judge ahead of time sometimes. At this time last year, there were 11 left to go, 4 of which at that time looked to be of significant size. More continue to be made. Of those 11 that were left last year, several more had... I did finish all 11 of those in the prior year, and am now in the territory of things that didn't exist at that point. So I am catching up little by little, and I assume that the rate at which these are being made will slow down, will continue to slow down. It already has. So I think I'll catch up at some point. When and if I reach the end of the list, any new worlds submitted after that will be played when a slot becomes available, but I won't just hold a slot open for them at all times. So I will reach the natural end of that at some point, I expect. So that's the plan afterward. So then there is Diablo, a 1997 action RPG by Blizzard Entertainment. This was a game that I played decades ago on my own, and it's been a pleasant trip down memory lane to rediscover it and play it again now. At the time of recording, I have completed 4 playthroughs of this game. So I've done Warrior Normal, Rogue Normal, Sorcerer Normal, Rogue on Nightmare mode, and I'm now in the middle of Sorcerer in Hell mode. So 3 characters, 3 difficulties. I decided to do each character on normal, then one of the other 2 difficulties with the character of my choice. I am currently still undecided whether I'll do a sixth playthrough, a second warrior run, because I've only played one playthrough with that class. Currently, I'm kind of leaning toward no. I'm sort of ready for that playthrough to be over. I may change my mind. We will see. Diablo 2, I may play someday, not particularly soon, though. Diablo 1 has been a satisfactory meal for me, and I'm more or less full from it. So that's my thoughts on that. Drod RPG 2 is a Magic Tower game set in the Deadly Rooms of Death universe, released in 2025. So this was a game that I barely knew existed before. I didn't know it existed for much time before its release. So this kind of came out as a pleasant surprise for me that it just popped into existence, as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, so I have seen the ending, and am now exploring bonus materials and secrets. The end goals are in sight, like I sort of know what the rest of the playthrough consists of. It's still some distance away. I have quite a bit to go yet. If I were to take a guess, I would estimate maybe a month and a half to go yet on this playthrough. I'm not going to do all of the possible challenges. There are several extra ones I could take on, but mainly I just want to see all of the rooms. That's how I'm measuring when I'm done with this playthrough. Could play user-made stuff in that same game at some point. I could come back and do some of the official challenges someday, but I don't think I'll do that as a part of this current playthrough. Then in the evening, less frequent time slot is Final Fantasy XIII. So this was a game that I started in early 2025. Last year I was just wrapping up Dissidia Final Fantasy, but a game that also took about a year to play. So yeah, Final Fantasy XIII was a Final Fantasy game that I had played just barely before. I had seen the first few hours of it, which in these games is just barely playing. Especially this one. There's like 40 hours of intro, and then the game opens up and you can do your own thing. This one has a very strange structure to it. When I was first starting my project of playing through all of the Final Fantasy games, 13 was a game that I was not particularly excited to play based on what I knew about it and its reputation at the time. But since then, after experiencing it for myself, it has absolutely won me over. Cool game, very glad I got to play it. It has a slow start but finishes strong. At the time of this recording, videos that have aired are in the final stages of the post-game, and the final episode has been recorded of it. And also the first video of the thing that will be replacing it has been recorded, which is Dissidia 0-2 Duodecim, so the sequel to Dissidia Final Fantasy. That's going to be the next one going up when 13 finishes. There is a little bit of minor unfinished business that I have. I may come back to it someday. I have unfinished business in a lot of Final Fantasies, so this just is added to the pile. There's just a little more than I feel is appropriate to do right now, but I've done as much as I feel like is what I want to do with that game. So I'm pretty happy with where things landed, but yeah, still these things are going to sit in my head, and I will wish to fully complete it someday. Anyway, yeah, so Dissidia Duodecim coming next, and after that will be 13-2, so we're just going to kind of alternate between Dissidia's and 13 sequels for a little while now, I think. And there are some games I want to get to after that. I am still feeling good about the Final Fantasy project that I'm doing. Still going strong on that, so it'll continue as long as it continues. So that's the end of the current state of the channel. Let's talk about the future. I have picked out a selection of games here that have either been frequently recommended to me or have some particular significance to me that I think are just worth addressing one by one and talking about what my plans for them are. So, starting with Bonfire Peaks, Lost Memories Parts 2 and 3. So I played Bonfire Peaks in whatever year that was, a couple of years ago, and then its first expansion, Lost Memories Part 1. So there are 2 more expansions since then, Parts 2 and 3 of Lost Memories. They are now available. They had a long development time. I want to say, I would have to check, but I want to say the interval between Lost Memories Part 1 and 2 and 3, which came out together, was longer than between Bonfire Peaks and Lost Memories Part 1. Not actually sure if that number is right, but that's what it felt like to me. Anyway, yeah, so those are now available. They are to be played by me when the time is right, hopefully this year. I'm looking forward to it when it is time to do it. Isles of Sea and Sky. This was formerly known as Akura. I did a 4-episode playthrough of the demo when it went by that name back in 2020. I had been waiting. So the game came out a little while ago, and I had been waiting for various release logistics to resolve. There was, let's see, how did it go? The game released separately on Steam and itch.io, and I had backed the game on Kickstarter, and the version that I requested was the itch version. That one came out later than the Steam version, I think, and then there was some major patch that I was waiting for a bunch of bug fixes and stuff. Then I think there's been some kind of expansion since then. So that one has been undergoing some post-release changes, which kept making me feel like it wasn't quite the right time to play it. But I do believe it is now ready when I get the chance. So just like Bonfire Peaks, this is ready for me when it feels like the right time. So hopefully this year. I would like to play it and see what is in the rest of the game. So here's another one, Leap Year. This has been recommended to me many times. Apparently it's a short platform game that just is very beloved. I think it came out last year. Last year would have been the leap year. 2 years ago now. It's 2026. So it came out sometime in 2024. There was also an expansion for it that came out later. But even with that included, I hear it's pretty short. I have been planning to play this one for quite some time. But it's just another case where the conditions have not felt right. The game selection process in the very rare these days times when I have an open slot. It's a complicated process, and the the time just hasn't quite come for leap year yet. But yes, I absolutely intend to play this game. Hopefully this year. We will see when and if that happens. Let's talk about a big one here. Hollow Knight Silk Song. This one is complicated. So this is the much anticipated sequel to Hollow Knight, which is a game that I Let's Played twice, actually. I did one playthrough in 2017 and then a replay in 2018. So I have to talk about something personal to me when I mention this game. I have a complicated relationship with Hollow Knight. Originally, I discovered it through a game development forum that I am on, right around the time that it released. The developers posted a thread there about it, announcing its release. And I sort of viewed it as a small, obscure indie gem. And I did a playthrough of it with that in my mind as it... What am I trying to say? In occupying the headspace that other obscure games that I've found and showcased have occupied. Then after I had discovered the game, a pretty massive community formed around it. And where I once felt a sense of ownership with my experience with Hollow Knight, that's sort of been eroded by the community that built up around it, and the fan base and various discourse that has been shared with me about it. It's a hard feeling to describe, but I don't know. I just have this particularly personal, intertwined relationship with this game that's a little more complicated than you might think on the surface. Anyway, so I have this some vague feeling of dread at playing a new Hollow Knight game, just with the knowledge of how alienated I'm going to feel by the discourse that will definitely reach my comment section. So yeah, just a kind of weird personal thing for me. I have some hang-ups about this game, and this is the best I can do to express what those are. All that said, I still want to play the game, certainly. Maybe this year, we will see what happens. But just to give you a little bit of context on why that has some extra baggage for me. So here's another one. The Descent of King Hesper is a massive collaborative Drod hold over 10 years in the making, which was released at the end of 2024. I would like to play this. It's Drod, which I have a long-standing relationship with. It's made by a lot of people I know. Most of the people I know who play Drod have worked on it. I am like one of the very few Drod players I know who did not have a hand in this hold. I almost did. I was asked to make a level for it once. I started and made about 3 rooms and was not feeling the inspiration, so I bailed out of the project at that point, and someone else took over for that level. So anyway, yeah, I would like to play this, but right at the moment, given the scope of it, it is gigantic, like larger than any other Drod hold has been before it. I am not comfortable starting a project with such massive scope while other large obligations are ongoing. The Zelda project ended, so that helped. That frees up just a little bit of the pressure I'm putting on myself for these things. But I still have the Final Fantasy thing going, I still have the Leaf's Odyssey thing going, I still have Strawberry Jam going. I think this will probably happen sometime around when both Leaf's Odyssey and Strawberry Jam have wrapped up. Final Fantasy, if it does ever finish, will keep going for still many years to come, I suspect. So don't worry about that one. But Leaf's Odyssey and Celeste are the things that I feel are standing in the way of me feeling comfortable taking on something the size of Descent of King Hesper. So more likely next year than this year. I do suspect I'll reach the end of the Leaf's Odyssey world list by the end of this year, and I suspect I will be done with Strawberry Jam by the end of this year. I don't know if either or both of those things will be true, but that's how things are looking to me right now. So, last one I want to mention here, sort of. This is complicated, but next one I want to mention is Animal Well. This was another game that has been on my radar since well before it released. I was very interested in it for a time. After release, my interest was dampened slightly by hearing a few more things about the game, that it contains puzzles with multiple layers of meta puzzles in them, meant for community solving rather than solo solving. And it's drawn some comparisons to Void Stranger, which is another game I had a very complicated relationship with. Gonna say more about that in a moment. But as far as Animal Well goes, I'm still interested. When and if I play it, it's probably going to be under a special clause that I'll go as deep into it as feels reasonable, and then stop, most likely without seeing absolutely everything that it has to offer. Tunic was kind of in this same position to some extent, though I found out after I finished my Tunic playthrough that I had seen almost everything that game had to offer, more than I realized I had. So I don't know, we'll see how Animal Well goes. I do expect to play it. This is another more likely next year than this year one, but just know that I'm considering it, and that's what I think of it. So speaking of Void Stranger, let's talk about that game. My 2024 LP of it was paused after a particularly unpleasant session, just left me not really wanting to play it at that time, with the idea that I might come back to it someday. So I'm going to share something here. On my own, earlier in 2025, I recorded 13 more episodes of that game which are currently unreleased. So I came back to it. I started out in the first unreleased episode. What I said was, when this video goes up, I will have already finished everything that I'm ever going to do in this game. And that has not yet become true. So yeah, there are 13 episodes sitting on my hard drive, recorded and sort of ready to go, except they are not ready because of the clause that I set out at the beginning of that. In the unreleased footage, pretty much every unsolved puzzle that was left and known at the time of my original LP has been solved. There are 3 distinct known activities that remain unrecorded. 2 of them revealed by the game, 1 that I know from supplemental information. Infer what you will from that. This is a game that's it's like illegal to talk about any details of what goes on in it. But from what I've said here, you can probably figure out what parts I've seen and what parts I have not, if you know how the game goes, maybe. The only thing in the way of finishing this is time allocation and also my own desire to play it. I am still undecided about whether I even want to release any of these 13 episodes or the rest when and if I get to recording them. I don't like to feed negativity, and this is a strongly polarizing game. And as it happens, I did not land on the side of the poll that loves the game. I didn't land firmly on the side that hates it either. There have been several games that I've played over the years that I feel like I love and hate in equal parts, or fluctuating amounts depending on the day when you ask me. This is one of those. A lot of the videos that I did in the original LP were done begrudgingly, and I don't really like the tone that I set with them, but I just felt like I was stuck in that situation. This 13 episode annex that has been recorded is in the same situation. So, it's sort of more of the same of the tone of the original LP. So anyway, feedback is welcome on this situation. I do not know what to do with it right now. If any of you have opinions about really wanting to see these lost episodes, I'm sure many of you, since just by the act of mentioning these, I'm going to get a lot of people saying, yes, please release them. But just anything you want to say to me about this, my ears are open, I guess. I have not decided what to do with this yet, but just know that it is there. It is something that I have worked on a little bit. And if it was bothering you that there were parts of this game that I hadn't seen yet, I've now seen some of them. I also watched part of another Let's Play, 2 other Let's Plays, and stopped those watches prior to either of them getting to parts that I have not seen. This was also part of my motivation for recording this extra footage, so that I could see some things and watch further in the ones I wanted to see. Anyway, yeah, so that's the complicated situation that Void Stranger is in. Right, I think those are all the games that I had on my list that felt like they were worth discussion here. If you have a favorite pick that you'd like to see that I did not mention, feel free to bring it up. There are lots of possible future projects I could mention here that I didn't bring up. I just wanted to keep the list to a reasonable size. So, anything else you want to throw in, I'm happy to talk about it. So just to follow up on a few things that I mentioned last year, I don't want to spend any time talking about this, so just very briefly, my finances are currently stable. I am employed right now at a job that does not disrupt my schedule too severely. So financial issues are currently not a problem, and that's all that I wish to say about that. So just so you know, because it does have a little bit to do with what I do here. Anyway, so another thing I talked about that I had planned to do in 2025 was that I wished to show some classic Macintosh games. The plans for that have taken some twists and turns. I still have some Macintosh hardware over to the right of me that is of the correct age for running the things that I want to run on real hardware. I still wish to do this, but I've ended up doing something related but not exactly the same. So let me pick up something here. I have had in my possession for the last 30 years? Not quite that long, 25 years, something, a long time. This large box of 5¼ inch floppy disks. It doesn't even fit in shot here. Whoa. So it's this big drawer of, get one out here, these things. This is old family data, our collection of games and personal stuff that me and my family members used to actually use on Apple computers back when we were all living together, and those were what we had in the house. And I had been meaning for the longest time to do something with this big pile of personal data. I finally got the appropriate hardware and software and time to do it to actually archive all, what's the number? 315 of these disks, I believe. So that was a project I found very interesting to do. And I wanted to do a video about the process of doing it. And I got to thinking, this is sort of in a category of videos that I've had ideas for several times that is a little larger in scope, a little more production work would go into them, rather than a Let's Play where, I sit down, play for half an hour, edit that, put it up, and it's just a regular, or like a regular heartbeat that goes up at all times. A video like this, for the disk archiving thing, would get lost in that noise, and I'd like to give it another place to sort of stand on its own. And I've been considering the idea of starting a second YouTube channel for things like, this would have a different focus. This would be more about retro computing and programming and some other topics that are perhaps tangentially related to video games, but this would not be for Let's Plays. Anyway, yes, so I haven't gone through all the logistics of this, but I have quite a few things that I would like to do in such a context where I'd put a lot more production effort into a video and not have it just get lost in the noise of continuous Let's Plays, which I do still want to continue to do. And not necessarily on a regular schedule. Definitely not on a regular schedule, yeah. So just giving these the time and space to breathe, spend as long in them as I want to get them where I want them. Because sometimes during Let's Plays, like this Void Stranger situation I talked about, sometimes things just don't happen on a schedule. So giving myself a space to work on these things outside of the habits that I've built up on this current main channel is something I'm giving serious consideration to. Again, it hasn't happened yet. I'm not absolutely sure I'll be doing this, but this is I've been putting a lot of thought into this, and just wanted to mention here that that is something I'm able to do. Anyway, so that is what I had to talk about. Hope you're all having a good year so far in the first few days of it, and I hope it continues to be. And I'll see you again sometime.